coming out of the spiritual closet and just being 100% authentic, not kind of authentic, not conditionally authentic based on who you're around or what audience you're standing in front of, but really willing to honor your truth so much so, and that be so grounded in it that you don't need anyone else to believe you, but all that you know you need to do is to share through your lens what your truth is, trusting that there's somebody out there who needs to hear it.
Let's talk about change. The truth is, nothing changes unless you change. And if you want to step into your full potential, you need to surround yourself with the right people. That is exactly why I have created the InPowered Life community. Within this community, I'm going to be teaching you the exact same mindset and energy practices that I have taught my clients that are paying me well over six figures, including CEO owners of billion-dollar organizations and professionals at the very top of their fields. You're going to get access to 2 live virtual calls every single month with me, where we're going to dive into mindset, energy practices, spiritual principles that are going to help you thrive in every area of your life. Can't make a call? No worries. We're going to provide you with a recording so that you can catch up anytime. Plus, you're going to have the opportunity for direct coaching from me and to learn from incredible guest speakers who are going to share their best practices and growth. Remember, you become the people that you spend the most time with. So why not spend time within a community that is going to elevate you and your life? For an introductory $499, you're going to get a full year of support and coaching alongside high performers who are committed to expanding their careers, their growth, their finances, and to elevate their overall quality of life. Just click the link in the show notes or log into rudyriekstins.com to lock in your spot and start your transformation today. Welcome to the InPowered Life Podcast, a space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, then hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudi and Aniston Riekstins, and this is the InPowered Life. Welcome to the InPowered Life Podcast. My name is Rudi Riekstins. I'm your host, and today we are joined by who used to be my incredible co-host who kicked off the InPowered Life experience and then handed the baton over to me because she felt a deep calling to speak not just into people seeking love, life, transformation, but speaking specifically into women. And I have the honor and the privilege of reeling my wife back into the InPowered Life podcast recording studio today to bring an unbelievable conversation forward for everybody, because I do think that this is a conversation that is going to support so many people that are not just within our communities, but people that are aspiring to do more, to find more validation and meaning in their life and in their everyday. And this was a story that I would say really has come up for both Aniston and I. Speaking about this, we said that is going to be an incredible episode that we need to record because people need to hear what's on the other side of breaking through that. And in fact, it should live on both the InPowered Life podcast and also on the Aniston Riekstins show. So I'm going to shamelessly plug my incredible wife and her unbelievable podcast, which is just doing so well, considering that she's just recently started this podcast. She has the most loyal, incredible followers, and it is really because of how she gets to show up out and in the world. And I say that only to set up the conversation for today, because Aniston wasn't always that way. She was very much caught up in corporate America, very concerned or worried about what people would say, what people would think. I would even go as far as to say it started long before she went into corporate America. And so today's episode, Aniston, if you will bring us to the forefront of what we're going to be talking about today and why it is so important and how each of us are so uniquely qualified to have this discussion today.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for having me back. It's interesting because even I would say a year ago or less than a year ago, I thought that my path forward was going to be that eventually I would full-time support Rudy and our business, energetic business consulting. And I would be working alongside him hand in hand. And then we would continue to build the InPowered Life podcast. And, life had other plans. And it's interesting because to me, that was very comfortable. That felt very comfortable. I feel very comfortable with Rudy at the helm and me in more of a supportive role. But also, as I was growing and as I was learning and changing, my purpose was evolving with me. And we speak about this a lot, and how your purpose is this ever evolving target, and how as you're growing and changing, it's going to change too. And it's going to get bigger and wider and deeper and turn and twist and turn in ways you couldn't possibly imagine. But I just knew in my heart that I needed to serve in a bigger way. I needed to step out on my own 2 feet and be willing to speak my truth. And that's not an easy thing to do. It really isn't. And what we really want to talk about today is that journey of, I'm just going to say it, coming out of the spiritual closet and just being 100% authentic, not kind of authentic, not conditionally authentic based on who you're around or what audience you're standing in front of, but really willing to honor your truth so much so, and that be so grounded in it that you don't need anyone else to believe you, but all that you need to do is to share through your lens what your truth is, trusting that there's somebody out there who needs to hear it. And for a very, very long time, and I can speak from my experience, and then Rudy, obviously I want you to share yours, because it has been such a journey for us and this process of negotiating our truth. Of negotiating, for a long time, we were both working in corporate America, yet we were these incredibly spiritual beings, these spiritual people outside of the confines of the 9 to 5. We were at home and we were developing our spiritual gifts, and we were flexing into our intuition and receiving information and serving people in really cool ways. But we projected this belief out that, like, if people knew the full breadth of what we were open to, the full breadth of what we believed, that we would be judged, rejected, abandoned, and all the things, right? That there would be loss there. It would come at a cost. And so we were very careful about controlling who knew what. And anytime we would meet somebody who was like super spiritual like us, it was like we were like kids in a candy store. We're like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. We can actually talk about all the things that we're interested in, because we are very dynamic, open-minded individuals. We're very curious. And when you put the open-minded and curious together and very spiritual, we are constantly learning and evolving and expanding our belief of what is possible in this world and who we are as beings and what we're meant to do. And that oftentimes means we're kind of on the front, the leading edge. Okay. Sometimes we find that we're on the leading edge in terms of we might be the only person in a room who is aware of something, of a spiritual concept, or of something that would sound completely crazy back then, and now everyone seems to know about. And so it's been really hard, I would say. Probably one of the hardest things that I've been through in terms of my evolution is trusting that it's okay for not everyone to agree with me. And it's okay for me not to be liked, or for people to think I'm crazy or weird or whatever. And in the sharing, though, is actually when I've met my people. And so I would love for you to share your experiences, Rudy.
Hey, it's Aniston Riekstins here, and I want to ask you, have you ever wondered if there's more to your life and work than what you're doing right now? What if I told you that the universe is hiring and you were born to fill a role that will bring you true purpose and success? In my new #1 best-selling book, The Universe is Hiring, Discover the Role You Were Born to Fill, I'm going to show you exactly how to step into that role. This isn't just a book full of inspiration. It's a roadmap to help you start shifting into a more fulfilling life right now. You'll get clear on your unique purpose, learn how to align with your strengths, and take actionable steps towards the career and life that truly light you up. If you're ready to make a change and start living the life you were meant for, grab your copy today. Available anywhere you buy your books online or click the link in the show notes.
Before we start with the story, I want to ground some information for the benefit of everybody that is listening to this. We're talking about coming out of the spiritual closet, and what we're really saying is Aniston and Rudy decided at some point in time, not at the same time, to step into their knowing of who they are and to show up fully as the person that they've committed to coming here to being. This is only going to be a beneficial episode if you turn it around on you. Where are you not 100% authentic in your life? Where are you being too quiet in the boardroom? Where are you not ideating with people when they're asking for your opinion? Where are you dressing too prim and properly because you don't want to offend, because you don't want to be seen, because you don't want attention? Where are you not putting yourself in bigger rooms because you're so scared to be seen? And all of these are triggers. And my story, and very much Aniston's story, was we are two people deeply and profoundly grounded in our spiritual faith. We connected on our very first date talking about the meaning of life and reincarnation and meditation and all of the beliefs of coming here as these beautiful divine souls who have a purpose and a mission. And our questions were not like, do you like pasta or do you like that? No, we were saying like, oh my gosh, like what lights you up? Like what is your purpose? What are your superpowers? Who do you want to be? If you could achieve anything, like that was our first date. And we've always been grounded in the fact that we came here to create impact. I share that because for the longest time, both of us hid the spiritual side of us. I have openly shared on the podcast before that I joined corporate America. And when I went into corporate America, I decided, man, I'm actually going to show up as the full breadth of who I am. I'm no longer going to hide and segment Rudy, who is spiritual at home, Rudy, who meditates at home, Rudy, who has sound bowls at home. I'm going to bring that guy to work, and they can take it or they can leave it. But it took a very, very calculated decision with tremendous potential for risk to start to show up fully as me. But what I've never shared on the podcast was that I also governed how much of me showed up in that job. So yes, did I absolutely come out and say, I meditate, I journal, I prepare my mind for success and everything is connected and there is a divinity, but I very much limited who I was. And for the benefit of the audience who has not gone on a journey with me over the last 15 years, I had a psychic reading with Aniston with an incredible psychic named Kim O'Neill. And in the very beginning of the call, she turns to me and she says, oh, you are very, very gifted as a psychic channel. And I looked at her like she was a crazy person with like 5 eyeballs. I was like, how on earth am I would know. And I literally said to her, I would know if I was a gifted psychic channel. Like I do not have an intuitive bone in my body. And she laughed and she's like, nope, you are unbelievably gifted. She's like, so skilled in this. In fact, for you, it is so natural that I can see why you would think you don't have one because you've kind of just always had it. And I said to her, I don't hear voices. I don't see images. I don't, have these apparitions that happen in front. Like, I'm not this, you've got the wrong guy. And I was turned off right away. I was like, this is not accurate. And so she put that to bed for a moment, continued to talk to me, and over the next hour truly enrolled me in that I am, in fact, carrying the potential to do this because everything she said on that call lit me up from the inside out. I was crying by the end of this call because she was speaking to my inner soul. And I hung up that call and I could not wait to grab Aniston, sit her down and just offload how somebody who did not know me, knew nothing about me, didn't have my information prior to prepare for this, spoke into my deepest yearnings as a soul. And I then decided that I was going to step out and into the world boldly as this version of me before I did any of the work. And I immediately went forward and posted on Facebook to my thousands of friends at the time this is who I am. This is what I do. I immediately started taking action to label myself somebody who was a psychic or somebody who was a channel, never for the benefit of creating psychic readings. It was more for the ability to hone my skill. And I remember there were a few people that were like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. Oh, that makes sense. And then there were thousands and thousands of crickets. And that experience was extremely debilitating for me. I know Aniston could add context there. I was so mortified that I had come out boldly, beautifully saying, hey, here I am. I'm ready to shine my light. And it's like the world wasn't ready for me. And I really took that as a painful lesson to never fully show the world who I am, because what if the world's not ready for you? I can tell you years later that I wasn't ready for that version of me because I wasn't prepared. I wasn't qualified. I hadn't honed my skill and my ability. I didn't have a tremendous amount of faith and trust in the process. And that took time. And so the world was reflecting back to me the version of what my belief was in the process. But I took that more as a shaming from everybody that I know. And so as quickly as I came out of that closet, I very quickly reverted back to that closet. But rather than just putting a few boards up to prevent people from coming in, I literally buried that external side of me. And then every morning at 4 a.m., Aniston and I would wake up and we would meditate, we would journal, we would channel. I filled books after books after books of just content that I would receive. I have shared a number of times with people within my community that before my daughter was born, I would connect with my daughter for the purpose of practicing my ability to receive intuitive information, not knowing if any of this is real, if it works. It was about honing, flexing this muscle. And so I would ask my unborn child, this was advice from the psychic Kim O'Neill, ask questions. Who are you? What do you like? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And I would fill these books with what were her favorite colors, what was her personality like. I remember her giving me her date of birth. And this was about 6 months before she was born. And I wrote down the date and I was like, there's no way that's accurate because it's 3 weeks before her due date or 4 weeks before due date. I'm like, there's no way that's going to be her date of birth. And I kept that date in my mind. And literally the day before that due date, my wife goes into labor. And we rush to the hospital and the doctor says, this baby's coming in an hour. And I remember saying to the doctor, no, the baby's not coming today. Baby's coming tomorrow. And the doctor actually said to me, and I love the line because I've used it on people before, don't drive the bus. You're not the bus driver. Like, let me drive the bus. This baby is coming. And I said with confidence, no, she's coming tomorrow. And true to her word, Aniston was getting the epidural, moving forward. And then all of a sudden, baby didn't come. And 12 hours later, the contractions began again, and she was born on the date that she gave me, which just further validated I have this incredible gift. I have this knowing. I have this ability to use it, but I still didn't bring it into my everyday at work. It remained this thing that I kept at home in the confines of my relationship with Aniston. So I was growing myself. I was growing my awareness. I was growing my ability. I even, with Aniston's push and a nudge, started hosting events where the two of us would invite people to come and listen to me channel, listen to me speak, listen to me receive intuitive information. And it was beautiful and it was successful, but I kept it from every other area of my life. And what's interesting is I left corporate America and started my coaching business. And it was almost as if that was when I had permission to do whatever I wanted. Was when I kept it even more under wraps, because now it was, what if my clients aren't ready for me? What if I'm too much? What if I turn them off? What if people don't want to know about these aspects? And the most beautiful thing has unfolded within my business. Over the last 4 years, I have been put into so many rooms, and a very large percentage of those rooms have been Christian-based audiences, because that is where my faith has come from. And I have walked into some of these rooms speaking wholeheartedly my truth, not shadowing who I am, filtering what I say so that I don't offend someone based on where they are. I'm very clear and very specific as to stand in my truth and say, this is my belief. I'm not asking you to believe yours, but I'm asking you to challenge what is your belief. And so many of these incredible souls have come to me saying, I really needed to hear this. I'm resonating so deeply with what you say. I've always felt this, but I didn't know where to turn. And I share all of that just to say that it wasn't until I have started opening up more and more and more, and even recently more into my corporate clients, bringing in some of these practices and beliefs, that I've really started to thrive. And that's the lesson of this today, is that, for so long, I have felt that if I filtered, I would be more palatable. And the less palatable I became, the larger my ability to connect with the people who I'm uniquely here to serve. Aniston, you have such a beautiful story, and I get to watch this unfold in real time. The growth of you in the last 12 months alone we've been together now almost 15 years for the benefit of the audience, but her growth has been tremendous growth. She's not the same woman I married, 14 years ago. But the growth of you in the last year, it has been an honor and a privilege to walk alongside you, to watch you blossom and come alive. I hear people speak about their experience of you and how they are magnetized to you, drawn to your words, to your voice, to your frequency, to your resonance. And so many people say, I just feel like I'm so deeply connected to her soul, and she is awakening something in me. She's remembering something in me. There's a remembrance that's being ignited. And these are words that you've incorporated into your marketing since hearing all of this terminology. But I don't believe that you would have ever been able to connect to people in the way that you do, in the way that you are, had you not gone through your, I'm going to refer to it as a metamorphosis. So why don't you bring us along on what has been your closet story?
Oh gosh. Well, first, before I tell my closet story, there's a couple of things I want to say about yours because, being there alongside you and through that entire process, I've always known you to be intuitive. I have always known you to be just almost supernaturally aware. Rudy's senses are like ridiculously heightened. I mean, his smell, his memory, his just ability to know things, and he has these like lightning strike intuitive impulses, and I trust them. I trust him implicitly. Not that I don't trust myself, but just his unique way of receiving information. So when Rudy uses the word channel, for those of you who aren't familiar with that, or maybe you have a totally different association with it, he's not talking about some voodoo, like whatever. He's just talking about it's intuition is what it is. It's an ability that we all have access to. It's just some people, I think, have that as a gift that's more pronounced. We all are unique in our gifts. We all have different superpowers, and we also all have access to receive information from our higher self, from our soul, from our creator, from divine spiritual beings that are all around us. And actually the reason why we found Kim O'Neill and why we keep bringing her up is I was reading this book. I had found this book in the library, as I often would. I would go to the library and I would look at in the spiritual section and just see what popped out at me. And there was a book that said How to Talk to Your Angels. And I was like, well, that's interesting. I mean, up until that point, I had never really thought long and hard about the fact that I'd heard about like you have a guardian angel or whatever, but like that was the extent of what I had heard of. And so I come home, I read this book, and then I'm like, Rudy, we should have a reading with this woman. I don't know. I just feel this pull. Like, I feel like we should. I was like, I don't know. I just feel like there's something here for us. And so Rudy trusts me, and he was like, all right, okay, sure. And I signed him up for this. And so when he says he was on that call being like, what is this woman on about? I mean, he hadn't read the book. He didn't have the same the same information and context that I did going in, but it lit something up in him. It activated him. And that's where I feel like having access to information like this can be really activating as long as you have discernment and you trust what feels right for you. But she only validated what I had always seen. He just hadn't seen it in that way. And he had his own experiences with people who had this gift in the past, which weren't always positive. So he was very guarded and very, very discerning and like, I don't know about this. But the more that he sat back and the more that he thought about it and the more that he saw all these instances and experiences where he just always had this knowing and he would know things about people. It's one of the reasons why he is so extraordinary. And I use that word very intentionally, extraordinary at what he does, because he goes into business and he's able to intuit what is going on. Like, where are the energy leaks? Where are the missing links? Where are the blind spots that those in the business can't see because they're too close to it? And he would not be able to do what he does without that gift. But for so long, he felt like he had to keep that hidden, that part of himself hidden. So he would still be utilizing that skill, but he wasn't teaching. He wasn't actually saying to them, so this is my process. This is how I receive information. And I think that was really cutting him off from standing in his true authentic power. So I just wanted to say that before I dive in to share my story, because he really, even in the early days, him coming out immediately to people and saying like, hey, so this is what's going on with me. And I realized I have this ability, and him being willing and to try, not only to try, but to put himself out there and to serve other people in this way took a hell of a lot of guts. But sometimes we have to grow into our gifts, and it doesn't always happen overnight. And then how we're going to utilize those gifts morphs and changes because they were never ours. They were gifted to us, right? So we are going to be shown how we're meant to use them, and trying to leapfrog your way into, okay, I'm ready before you're actually, life has qualified you, I think is where that suffering can come. So for me, and it's been an ongoing journey, but I'll really hone in on this year, because this year for me has been a really pivotal year. And I wasn't starting from ground zero. I mean, I've had decades of doing the work. I've had decades of, this process of remembrance and evolving and becoming who I've always been. I'll call it more of a return. I've been returning to my most authentic self. And I really thought I was doing pretty good. Like at the beginning of the year, I was like, okay, I'm making this massive decision. I'm leaving this unbelievable company and job that I absolutely adored, and I still love them dearly. And it was such an amazing part of my life, but I just knew I was being called into something more. And I really thought, okay, I'm going to run right straight into it. And I was getting these downloads, like this information of like, okay, so you're going to be helping women heal. Okay, so you're going to be creating programs and creating spaces. Like I was getting this information. And so, my type A part of my brain was like, all right, so let's make a list. Like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to build a landing page. We're going to do all the work to set it all up. But clearly the universe and God had another plan, because I needed to be fully remembered first. Like I needed to go through my own process before I could then truly be a mirror for women, so that I could reflect back their true self. Because what I've come to learn is you can only heal to the degree that you've healed. And so you'll be able to help someone to where you're at, but no farther. So there's no faking that. There's no like skirting your way around the work. The only way is through. And so it really was through that a surrendering process, which we've spoken about earlier on the podcast. I call it my coming home to her moment. In fact, I created a whole 7-day series based on the coming home to her, because I realized that it was such a need right now, especially for a lot of women that were in my space. And what I realized through the process was that I had a choice to make, that I had to ask myself, what am I more committed to right now? Am I actually committed to my purpose, and my mission, and serving other people the way that I say that I am? Or am I more committed to control, to controlling what people know about me, to controlling how they feel about me, to controlling the outcome, to controlling the path? And I realized that up until that point, I had absolutely been committed to control. And that was what I was gripping. And that was what I wasn't willing to let go of, which is what had stopped me from, I believe, expanding maybe even earlier and farther and faster, because I was still holding on to this anchor of like, okay, but if I completely speak my truth and people know that, I don't know anyone who has exactly the same belief structure as me. I grew up Christian. And then my beliefs expanded beyond that. I didn't move away from it. It just expanded to include more. And I felt like that was going to be judged. I'm a master numerologist. And I really grappled in my 20s early on with like, is this a sin? Like, should I be doing this? Isn't this like evil, like divination, like astrology and all of that? And like I had this conflicting war going on in my mind, but my heart was absolutely like every time I would read a numerology book, I was just like lit up with joy. And so there was this contradiction between what my mind thought was acceptable and okay and where I was being led. And I had to release that, to release that need to control and surrender to the version of me that is my most authentic self, trusting that, you know what, like, even if I don't belong to anyone out there, even if the worst thing happens and everyone I know and love rejects me, like I'll always belong to me. And wouldn't I rather know the joy and what that juicy feeling of alignment feels like, of being 100% myself, than having an army or a plethora of friends where I'm never able to experience that. And I always knew I would have Rudy in my corner, and I always knew I'd have my kids in my corner. And I was like, okay, that gets to be enough. And so I started dipping my toe out like on social media, and I would be like, okay, I'd tell Rudy, I'm going to post this. I'm going to post this. What do you think? And he's like, just do it. I'm like, okay. And I would do it. And then I would it's almost like I would peek out and be like, okay, wow, nothing happened. I thought nothing, no backlash, no, And then at one point, I think I got like a kind of a snide comment from someone or whatever. And I was like, okay, so that happened and the world didn't end. It was fine. She gets to have her opinion, moving on. And then I would I felt like every week I was like, okay, so now I'm going to put out this numerology program and let's see what they do. And now I'm going to do this. And what I realized was, for so long, I had said, okay, I just can't wait to I just need to call in my people. You know what I mean? Like my soul aligned clients, I want to call them in. But the truth was, I wasn't fully aligned with my soul. I wasn't fully aligned with my soul on the inside and the outside. So I wasn't attracting my soul aligned clients. And it wasn't until I started really just being like, well, what the hell? And just putting it out there, all the things that in my mind I had told myself would be too much, that I realized that in the doing so, I naturally magnetized my people. All the people that came to me were like, oh my gosh, they were so similar to me. They're like, I know I grew up Christian too, and I wasn't really sure about this, but I can't stop thinking about numerology. Or, oh my gosh, I love talking about magnetism. This is so intriguing to me. Like, thank you so much for introducing me to this. Like, it was what was being reflected back to me was validation in who I am. And it only happened when I stopped needing it. All right, so there you go, Rudy, your turn.
I want to just ground how beautifully you phrased that. At no point in time did you want to stop being the base of your faith, which I don't believe in speaking to only Christians because I have a Christian background. I want to speak to all religion. I want to speak to everyone. I believe everybody has the foundational rules with which they operate. And if I were to summarize my life's work, it would be there's more. And you use that terminology saying that, the faith that you grew up in didn't have room for numerology. And when you started diving into it, it felt dirty, it felt wrong, it felt bad, because that's what you were taught or told. Astrology and numerology and psychics, all of these things are very, very much against the faith basis that we've both been raised in. And yet it didn't take away from the foundational faith that I have. It simply just added to it. I just have more. And I love that the more people start to flex into who they really are, what really lights them up. I love that Abraham Hicks says, tapped in and turned on, that when you tap into the inner knowing of who you are turned onto the life purpose that you've come here to have and to be. And we do have to know who we are to align with our inner soul so we can align with the souls that are aligned with the work that we have to do. And this is not just for people who are purpose-driven. I believe that everybody, I know that you do, Aniston, believe that everybody has come here to create profound impact in the world in every single market. You know, we were having a conversation just half an hour before hitting record about a woman you're doing business with that's in the fashion industry, and yet she is speaking beautifully spiritual truths into you, into her work, how she's showing up out in the world. And again, I'm going to tell you, at considerable risk. What will people say? What would people think? And she's doing it so beautifully, which is no wonder why she's creating not only beautiful impact out in the world, but she's beautifully and abundantly benefiting from the work that she's doing. What would be a piece of advice that you could give to our audience today in having the courage to take that leap of faith? Because I can tell you, if I had listened to you 10 years ago and started taking action 10 years ago in a very different approach than the one that I had taken, I don't even know where I would be today. I don't even know what it is I would have been able to achieve today, because you know, my journey definitely was a forward and a back and a forward and a back. And I think that so many people experience that 2 steps forward, 5 steps backwards. How could you support someone who is wanting to step out of their closet so they could live their highest and their greatest potential?
Well, first of all, I think that it's really anchoring into this truth that if you're waiting for the day that somebody or some experience comes to liberate you, right? Liberate you from the confines of having to be someone else, you will be waiting for the rest of your life. That's never going to happen, because nobody can ever liberate you. Only you can liberate you. Freedom is never created from trying to control external circumstances, as much as our minds will tell us that it is. Freedom is only created when you decide to question the beliefs that you've always had and to choose a different behavior that is more true for you and more loving for you. And as an example, that could be thinking about right now, like thinking about one aspect of you, whether it be a talent, whether it be an interest, maybe it's a belief that you have that you keep hidden, or maybe you keep hidden from certain people, or you think, okay, this would be too much. This wouldn't be accepted. You might think that you're avoiding pain by holding on to that and keeping that under wraps. But what you don't realize is that is the cause of your pain. It's actually the cause of your pain. And because what you hide, you get to keep. And it takes up a lot of space in your energetic field. And it creates a lot of internal pressure and internal angst and anxiety and stress. A lot of times we're the cause of all that. We think it's other people and other things. So what I would say is, what is one big scary truth that if you were to say it out loud, even just to yourself, like maybe tomorrow morning while you're doing your priming, if assuming you prime, or in the morning, just grab a piece of paper and a pen. Like, what truth is really asking to be shared, is asking to be seen? What aspect of myself is wanting to be seen right now? And just do it for you at first. Write it out. Because the minute you can write it out and then you can see objectively, then you can actually start thinking about it, not from your emotional, like from the amygdala, but actually from your logical thinking mind of like, what's the worst thing that could happen if I shared this? Oftentimes it's, well, these people might judge me. Then you have to ask yourself, what do these people add to my life? And oftentimes it's nothing. Or they don't even feature on your radar. They're just people from your past, or they're people that you don't want the life that they're living anyway, right? So why would you really care what they have to say? And so I would urge you to do what I did, which is just baby step it. Start with a small share. Go on social media, or call your mom or call your best friend and say, hey, I have something that I haven't told you, and I just want to get it out there. And I don't need you to respond. I don't need you to say anything. I'm just going to say it out loud, because your truth, the truth will set you free. And that one statement, everyone knows that quote, I think is one of the most profound statements. The truth, your truth, and the honoring of your truth, so much so that you're willing to share it with your voice, which is one of your most powerful tools, whether it be written or whether it be vocalized or something that you express through your art. Like, it sets you free. So forget about everybody else. And yeah, it's going to impact other people. And you're probably going to change the world with it, because it's often the truth that we are hiding that actually becomes the breakthrough for other people. But set yourself free and start today.
The number one fear is public speaking. And I think that people fear public speaking because speaking out aloud to one or more people, to an audience, means that you've put yourself out there and you may get rejected. And for so many, the fear of being rejected is debilitating, so they would rather not. And we turtle and hide because we don't want to feel the potential rejection. And so I would love to close today's episode with my take on everything Aniston just shared for you, because this is what I have used to change profoundly my life and then the lives of essentially thousands of people, which I don't believe I would have been qualified to do had I not shifted my vantage point. And that was, it's not about what you stand to lose by being you. It's what do you stand to gain? Yes, stepping out of a spiritual closet, stepping out of any closet, whatever that may be for you. Could you potentially offend someone? Probably. Could you lose a friend? Could you have a disgruntled family member? Could you even be removed from the family trust fund if you have one? Yes, all of them are potentials. But what do you stand to gain? You get to be the greatest extension of who you came here to be. You get to live your life lit from the inside out, tapped in and absolutely turned on. You get to live every day with purpose, with passion flowing through your veins, and that every time you speak in your truth, in your authenticity. And in the way that we started today, when I beautifully got to love on my wife and talk about how I hear from people who have never met her and their experience of her online, through a stage, through a podcast recording, through a meditation, through a course, through one of her programs, through her community. I've had people that I have known for over 5 years in my social circles, as far as my company is concerned, saying to me, like, I just cannot get enough. She truly is magnetizing. I'm lit up when she speaks. It's like she's speaking into my soul. That can only come from somebody who is speaking from their soul, and from their soul can connect to another soul. And I'm always reminded that Aniston could absolutely have stayed who she was, and she would have been absolutely wonderful. And would she have impacted my life? Yes. And our kids? Absolutely. And our friends and family? Unbelievable, undeniably, yes. But now she gets to impact humanity because she's showing up as her true, authentic self. And so as I say these words, I want you to think about what is on the other end of you no longer worrying about what somebody else is going to say or think. Jen Gottlieb recently posted that people fear so much about what they are going to say. And then she said, who the F are they? Who is the they that you're preventing yourself from living your life over? And I really resonated with that because, yes, she is living her life and she used to worry about what they would say. And now she's like, I don't even know who they are. Like, could I even put a name to a they? And she just chooses to live a life every single day, every single way. And by default is showing other people how to do the same. Could you stop worrying about the they and worry about the you and the them? The them are the people who you've come here to impact. And when you focus in on them, I promise you, everything else is going to beautifully, divinely, and abundantly align for you on the back end. We love you so very much. We hope that you have the most incredible rest of your day. But this information would just be that if you didn't take it somehow and put it into practice some way. Share this with somebody who you think might need to come out of their closet, spiritually or otherwise. Maybe take a step or an action, a little post, a poke, a phone call to your mom or your best friend, or maybe you're going to stop worrying about the they and commit to pouring into the them. We love you so very much. Have an amazing rest of your day.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And we would love your support in leaving us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to check the show notes for more information on how you can find us online and on Instagram. Now go create an amazing day for yourself, and we'll see you again soon.